Hello, I am Pastor Joan Whitrock, and I am here in the sanctuary of one of the churches I serve to share a soft skill that I learned during the pandemic. Like so many of you, I am one of those clergy folk that has had to learn about all sorts of things really quickly that I never thought that I would need to know how to do. For me, a lot of that has been about AV sorts of stuff. And I thought I'd share with you today one thing that I've been getting a lot of questions about from other pastors, pastor friends, and just generally other people wanting to do this. And that's questions about our congregation's FM radio transmitter. Before we go too far, I should say that here in the United States, there are guidelines that the FCC, called FCC Part 15, requires people using FM transmitters to follow, in that our radio is FCC Part 15 compliant, and if you decide that you want to purchase a radio for your church to use to do this sort of thing, you also should spend the money to make sure that you get something that is most certainly compliant with FCC regulations. The second big thing that you're going to want to do before taking the time and energy to set up a radio transmitter is you're going to want to check to see if there are empty FM signals where you are at. So, how are you going to do that? Well, you could go and get a radio and slowly look at each and every single FM channel until you find an empty one. Or I will link below a link to a website that's free of charge. You can type in your zip code where you're located at, and it will list out to you professional FM broadcasting stations that are in your area, and you'll be able to use that to see if there's an empty station, an empty piece of bandwidth by you that you could use for this purpose. If there isn't an empty channel, I'm so sorry. That means that there will be no way for you to use an FM transmitter the way that my congregation uses it in worship. We set our FM transmitter up both when we worship inside and when we are doing what I am calling stay in your own car worship. So without further ado, here is our congregation's FM transmitter. The first piece is the main transmitter box. I'll show it to you. This is an Etcrest radio. And when I checked this morning, these were still available for purchase over the internet. So I will find one and I will maybe make a link below also. And you will notice that that sticker there has that little logo there, which means that it's FCC compliant. So super important that you get a radio if that's the case. And then here is the back. This radio also comes with an antenna. And you'll see why this is so important in a moment. It comes with measuring tape. I was very excited that it came with this extra antenna base. You can hook the antenna to the back of the radio itself, but having this base allows me to give my radio even more space and work even better. And then you are going to want some sort of audio cable to get a source of noise for your radio, if you would. So this is the cable that I use to hook into our congregation's PA system. Now, the radio itself only has regular old audio jacks. For a couple of bucks, we were able to get this adapter. Guess what? That goes on the end of that like this. So this end will go to my radio when we get there in a moment. And then this end will go into the congregation's PA system, whether it's the one set up for indoor worship here inside or the one that I set up when we go outside. And then also there is, of course, a power cable. So I'm going to take a moment and we're going to show you all sorts of pictures now of me setting all this stuff up. So this is one of those projects for which you are going to want to actually look at the instructions that came with your manual. In your manual should be a chart that looks like this one, which is for this radio. And so you can use this to look up your radio frequency and the length that you need your antenna to be. So in my case, our antenna needs to be 31.5 inches. So you're going to lengthen your antenna and you're going to measure from this black spot right here in this case. And you will see 31.5 inches long. It's important that your antenna be the right length for your radio, and it's also important that you hook your antenna onto your radio base before you turn your radio base on. This radio base will get really, really hot, and trying to run it without an antenna signal can damage or burn out the radio. So you'll see there that there is an RF input. This particular antenna can go directly into that output and you can use it that way. Or it came with that base. So I'm going to stick that base into my radio like so. And then I'm going to connect that longer piece to this piece here. Or not. Fun things happen when you're trying to record yourself doing them. There we go. Okay, so here we are in the other room in the narthex, which is where most of the radio is going to live. I have used that gray cord to stretch the connector from the main bulk of the PA system, from the mixer board, to all the way over here, and I have that. And then the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to plug in the power. So there's the power cord. And then I'm going to plug this into the wall. And it might make a little noise on you. Don't worry about that noise. That's kind of a normal thing. And then for our radio, you see, well, I don't know if you can see the display or not, but you can see that I have set it, if you can, to 93.5 FM. There are directions in that little booklet I showed you before, specific to that radio that show how to do that. And then, well, you can see there's a whole bunch of cables and stuff for things to do for outside. But then you can see that this antenna, the antenna part of this, goes way far out, all the way over here, and it is better if you can set this antenna on something. So I don't know if you can really see or not, but I have set our congregation's antenna on to just a regular old piano bench because it's pandemic and that's what we had sitting around. Now, also, you're going to be tempted to want to check out all this equipment, right? Here's the thing. I'm wearing a lapel mic, right? If you use the lapel mic standing near the antenna or near the radio box, you are guaranteed 100% going to get feedback. What you're going to want to test this to see if it works is one of these guys. So how I tested our radio to make sure that I knew that our radio worked properly was I just ran some music through the PA system and then I plug this into a wall away from the box or the antenna in order to make sure things were working properly. Because also, if you get near this radio, wearing your lapel mic, again, you will have feedback, and that is bad news. Also, you should know this if you're going to pass your lapel mic to people who are sitting in their cars to do readings and things like that. They do need to turn their car radio all the way off before turning on their wireless microphone, or else you likely will get a source of feedback in your system, which is no good for anyone. Anyway, that I think is the bulk of how to set up your FM transmitter if you're me and using my transmitter. Are these the perfect components? No. Is this the best FM transmitter ever invented? No. Is there probably something much more expensive that we could have gotten that would do the same thing much better? Probably. Are there maybe cords that don't need to be adapted? Maybe. But it's a pandemic, and the scarcity is on, and I don't know about you, but I've been cobbling things together with just what I have. Again, I am not an electrician. I am not a licensed professional in any sort of way, except that I have clergy credentials. And so I hope that those of you that are clergy that are watching this, or people that are just thinking about putting one of these together for your congregation so you can use it to have worship during this time, find this video to be at least a little bit helpful. Sorry for the terrible quality. Have a great day. Bye.